So I think, what we could do is, as we were talking about, is it about self-expectations? Is it about figuring out what you really are, or understanding, unraveling yourself piece by piece, layer by layer to see. Look, we are all born as a clean slate with and then we start writing page by page. A lot of our identity comes from, we just inherited it, isn't it? Culture we are born in, religion that you could be born in, society, nationality, all of that you inherit. And then you think that's what you are. And then you take on obligation because, you have to take on those obligations because that's what everybody is doing, that's what you've grown up into. And that's where the conflict starts to happen. Because you make compromises. You've got a degree, or you have a certain skill, you have a lifestyle, you have to take care of a number of things, again, obligations. But the other side of you want to go and do something else, whatever that might be. And because you're not doing that, and you say, you know what, never mind, I have to do this, because I have to take care of that, take care of this. But nobody's born with their obligations. Nobody is born with identity. We learn to have our own identity. We are given a name. All of us get our name. No, we don't. For example, we get created without our permission. Nobody asked us, both of us, by the way, do you guys want to be created? And by the way, if you get created, this is going to be your life. I would have said, no, you know what? I'm very happy. Imagine creating a car and saying to the car, oh, well, by the way, before we conceive you, before we put you on the production line, you'll have to go through this, you'll have to go through a stupid owner or things like that. The car might as well come to you and say, no, by the way, don't want it. So this is a question, and I do want to take your thoughts on that.
Well, coming to the car analogy, most parents think about their children. This is what's interesting, as a product that they buy, because they possess many things, and they say, look, you know what? I'm going to drive this car to this place today. I'm going to park it here. I'm going to put it in the garage today. So if you are the son or the daughter born into the family, you're treated like that. If there's a problem with the car, you take it to the garage to be fixed. And if the guy says, look, it can't be fixed, okay, whatever, change this part. And that is because as a medic, I do have people coming to me and saying, how can we fix this? So yesterday I had a very interesting conversation with somebody, a young person. So he was thinking that he had a particular condition. And he was very happy. Why? Because it made him unique. That explained a lot of difficulties that he went through in his life. And apparently, his parents told him that we read about this condition online and there is no cure. And he said, hang on, I'm so happy that I'm unique. But because they're looking at it in a different way. So that's interesting, So the child is happy in some ways because I know I can explain why I am the way I am, but the parent is thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do now? Because he's got this, huge issue. And sometimes what I find is, this happens in families. I deal with families a lot. Parents have that expectation on children. There is a high level of expressed emotions from the parents because that comes with an emotional connect or whatever, right? Like the parents are obligated to look after their children. Parents sometimes feel burdened that they have to direct the children in a particular way. Parents, feel embarrassed if their children are not doing well in sport or academia and they want to do some special lessons or whatever, happens, in all cultures, And so when you have a child growing up like that, it becomes very hard, and parents' expectations are passed on to the children, and somehow the obligations that you talk about are given. You're not given a choice to say, my dear son or daughter, are you going to take on this obligation? They say, look, this is your obligation. You just need to get on with it. Not very explicitly in many areas, but very implicit there, that way. So, if the child is not up to it, for whatever reason, then it becomes a problem.
Yeah, it's a very interesting direction of travel that we are getting into. I wonder if a lot of people who are listening to this conversation, hopefully there will be, they feel that, they have taken on obligation that they're not happy with.
Yeah.
And I would think, this is just a guesstimate, that there is a sizable majority of people who are probably, they're in a relationship, they're not happy with their continuing it. They're in a job, they're not happy with their continuing it. They've taken on obligation, which is breaking them, but they are still carrying on with it. And some have found a way to say, well, this is the destiny, well, this is what God wants me to do. Some have said, this is what a good person would do. And some would say, well, I've been taught to be a right and proper person, so I'm doing what I have to do. Now the question there, because you talked about upbringing and conditioning from the parent. Now imagine if there was no conditioning from the parent. Imagine if parents said, what, it's up to you what you want to become. You want to become religious, up to you. You want to change your name after you think, 12 years or 15, you say, oh, I don't like my name, go for it. I just want to understand what that society will be, where you don't have a structure, you don't inherit those processes where you say, yeah, okay, I have to do this, I have to follow the certain rules, or if I don't do this, I am not a good person, or, a number of things. Now, what makes somebody happy is completely different it's completely unique in a way, right?
Yeah.
So what makes you happy and what makes me happy are completely different. And I think this is where probably the answer also should come from, because society is boxing everybody in the same way. So you have a religion that has to fit everybody. You have a culture that has to fit everybody. Even in family, you have, let's say, 4 siblings or 2 siblings, there are differences. They get created from the same parent, but they are growing differently. They have different tastes. They have different character, personality. So I think what happens to the society then? The society stops to exist.
But that's an interesting one, because we talk about, say, free range, right? Free range chicken or eggs or whatever, free range. So there are some experiments done with children attending that type of schools or communities, living within that communities. But they have a general direction. They're not given a prescribed path. They have a general direction. But what is important, in my view, again, I'm not an expert on child development by any means, but if you protect them from harm and let them grow, it's like when you plant a seed, you need to protect it from the evil forces. But you're not actually pulling the sprout out of the soil, right? You're just protecting it, and you let it grow. So that is the process that some people have come up to say could be the best one. So you create conditions for the child to thrive, but not direct them in a particular way. But that takes a lot of confidence on the parent's part to be able to do that. So for instance, your son or daughter comes up and says, Dad, I want to become an opera singer or a top footballer. And you're thinking, gosh, what's the chance of them going there? What if they pursue this path and then there's no job at the end of it? A lot of the parents ask that question themselves. Rich, poor, whatever, right? They do. So if you don't have the confidence in your child's ability to achieve what it is that they're dreaming of, then it becomes an issue, 1. And 2, at a young age, children get excited about various things, and sometimes they may not know, what, at this age, probably even at this age, we don't know what's right or wrong sometimes. But at that age, they're excited about this one day and they're excited about that the other day. So sometimes it becomes difficult, you know. So how do you then feed them information to make that decision and keep growing? That becomes a challenge. Because, like when you look at a tree that's growing, you need to trim the side branches so that it grows tall. And after a while, you can leave it alone because you can go to a certain height and then have many branches. But if you don't trim it when it's growing, it just grows kind of more horizontally rather than vertically. But that's another thing to consider, because the tree will go in all shapes and sizes and forms, But it's a difficult one, Do we direct them for a certain age and then let them go at a particular point? And how far do you want to take them? We don't have the answers to that, So that is a challenge, Even in our house, we come up with this challenge between me and my wife, and we talk about this all the time. And the answer is that we don't know. We don't know if our child is in a position to make that decision for himself or herself. So that's a challenge. But I think this is certainly a conversation that needs to be had. It can't be ignored. In the modern age, when you're going into a world where there are so many choices. If you didn't have the choice, you may not know what you missed. But now that you know what you missed, I should have done that, and look at him, look at her, she did it. I wish I had that, So with hindsight, we all start blaming ourselves. And maybe we should talk a little bit about how comparing yourself with others also influences your level of happiness, for instance.
The good thing about mind is it's, the more you stretch it, the more you think, the more it expands, the more elastic it is. And I think the more you find yourself going to places that you didn't think you would, and that changes your personality, your character, and who you are as a person.
Absolutely,
I think we could talk about that. Why not? I think let's talk about that.